So as we turn the corner now into our second conversation, which is for those who looking to improve, focus, and strengthen their actual practice. In other words, they're in it, they're doing it, they've logged a number of hours mentoring, and they're looking for some more insights. We thought we would spend this hour, which is essentially from 11:15 to 12:15, and then we can do a Q&A afterwards. And I know that Yvonne is with us and she can stick around for a little bit, so we'll certainly benefit from having Yvonne sharing some of her thoughts. But where I'd like to start with, Doug, I'm gonna come over to you because we're in something called a pandemic. We've got this thing called COVID-19 influencing a lot of our lives, our businesses. But there is a story, I believe, that's unfolding because of COVID-19 and mentoring. And I know you've been doing a lot of reading and writing and around this. And I'd just like you to share some thoughts that would then get Yvonne and I engaged with you, because I think this is an important element for those who are already mentoring. So your thoughts?
It's definitely, and actually to put a little bit of context around it is, I facilitate a mentoring circle every second Saturday, and up until the whole pandemic thing, we were doing this face to face, and now we've had to do it virtually. And so one of the topics that I brought forward was mentoring in a pandemic. Is there a difference? And I posed the question of the people that were online and that were part of that. And it was quite interesting, the number of various responses in that we ended up getting or having. Some said yes, and we actually had an individual that was part of the group that actually had said that the fact that it's not even, when we're in a pandemic, mentoring is not even relevant whatsoever, that we don't need to consider it or think about it. And I actually challenged the individual and gave some explanation. And what I'll do is I'll share some of that. And this is from our colleague down in Australia, Anne Rolfe, who talked about the question that she posed was, is mentoring even relevant right now? We're in the middle of a crisis and you have all kinds of other priorities to deal with. Perhaps you're trying to keep a business running on a skeleton staff. You're juggling working from home and homeschooling children. You could be struggling in self-isolation. And of course, you may even more so, you could be sick or have high risk or sick loved ones. So all of these are things that are going on around us. And her comment, and I found it to be very timely, was, despite all of this, mentoring has never been more important, because mentoring is leadership and everyone is crying out for that. The behaviors and skills we use as mentors are definitely needed now. And mentoring is a sane, meaningful, and caring conversation, and absolutely essential right now. So I'll pause there for your thoughts.
Caring conversation, caring, the notion of kindness. And in this time of pandemic, in what's happening, to be kind to one another. We've seen videos on social media channels, people fighting over toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I understand where that's coming from. There's this notion of kindness, and where can we find it? How can we give it this caring? Because it's very easy to get to a point of being careless, right? Or being careful. And careless is, the heck with everyone else, I'm just going to take care of myself. Careful, I'm going to take care of everyone at my expense. And those are sort of like two ends of a stick. And I would like to think the caring, what it's all about, is really about finding a way in which to find that dynamic balance of yes, there's things that I need to understand and learn, and there's ways that I can help other people. And I think, to Anne's point, mentoring, it's the mentoring carrying stick, if you wish, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're now holding so that you can deal with these swings that are starting to take place. That's what I would add in right now.
No, I agree, because when I take a look at some of the folks that are reaching out to me when we're in this whole pandemic thing, and it was interesting that Anne had mentioned the aspect of juggling working from home and homeschooling kids, that I'm finding that a lot of people are experiencing a higher level of anxiety and stress as a result of that. So as a mentor, are you able to, from a tools and tips and techniques, are you able to recognize when there's that shift or that change in one of your mentees, to be able to say something's just not quite right, and we need to have that conversation around that. And so I'm constantly in touch by text message or however, with individuals that are struggling with that issue, and then trying to figure out what are some of the coping skills that I can suggest to them that's going to help them navigate through this.
Yeah, so you're speaking about that kindness element of
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. And I also think it brings out to the surface the importance of presence, is to be present in that moment, and from that place to be able to, in a sense, share consciously and listen responsibly. And to be able to listen responsibly, to listen to the words. You mentioned it just at the tail end of what you were sharing there, is listening for the words that the person is using, the tone, the body language that goes with that. At the same time of figuring out, I have to consciously share a response in some sense that I've listened to. And will it arrive? I send it, will it arrive in a way that has this kindness? Is there a time where it has to arrive with a little bit of the shake of the head of the person going, oh, hang on, what did you just say to me? Right, because you need that little bit of a shuffle, all right, in terms of your thinking. So this notion of effective communication we also talk about in the international mentoring community is so important as well. But the presence, for someone who's mentoring, the mentor to be present, all right,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in what's happening in today's unfolding of the pandemic, there is something to be said for that. And I'm just curious, Yvonne, any thoughts around this notion of presence and mentoring?
I think that Ravi at MentorCloud had a very interesting point that he made when we did a presentation to executives here in Calgary, and he was talking about mentoring is basically a conversation that can change someone's life. It could be just one conversation. Mm-hmm. So whether mentoring is done in person or over the phone, much like coaching, it's really about holding space for a possibility of some deeper learning to take place. And I'm definitely in agreement with Doug's comments that right now there are seasoned doctors and nurses that could share with 10 people their expertise very quickly and be really effective in sharing wisdom. Now, I guess that opens up the conversation. Is mentoring only one-on-one, or can it be one-to-many? And does it become teaching then automatically because it's one-to-many? I don't have an answer to that. Doug probably has some insights on that. But I think the awareness of a skilled mentor is much like a coach, where we are very much in tune with listening to the pace, the intensity, the language, the hesitation, the quietness of the voice. All of those things tell us a great deal of information, even if we're on the phone and not live on video or on Zoom or in person.
Yes, I agree. The notion of effective communication, and being one who plays with words, I look at communication, I see the level of commonness, unity, the level of commonness that unifies us into action. So if you take the C and the A and flip them around in communication, it forms action. So it's the level of commonness that unifies us into action. And mentoring, to your point, Yvonne, can make the difference in a person's life and living. One conversation, right, is important. And if we understand that from this mentoring point of view and what it is that you're offering for the world now to be a mentor is so important, and don't take it for granted. But there's a caveat to that, and I hope I can express this, okay? Just because you think you can doesn't mean you should. And I know we talked about the should part, I get, but the point I'm trying to make is just because you can get on and be like a social media company doesn't mean you should be doing it, right? There's times and places, and mentoring is something similar. Just because, oh, I've heard about mentoring, I've been mentoring for a while, I think I know I can go in and I can help someone out and do all this kind of thing. Slow down a little, slow down just a bit here, and just really ask yourself, am I going to be present in the way that is going to be of kindness and of caring versus, I got something to share with you kind of idea. So I want to bring that caveat in at this point in time for those of us who are mentoring.
Yeah, and you talked earlier on about the importance of storytelling. I actually had a similar situation to that last week, where I read a post from one of my colleagues saying, oh, and now she was going to be offering coaching. And I was like, whoa, hang on a second. Because you have been through something doesn't mean that you have the capability and capacity and wisdom to be jumping into a science of coaching. Having spent 250 hours on my training and 6 months at a PhD level and $10,000, I take a little bit of an affront to that comment. However, my approach to managing that was to take several deep breaths for a moment, take a couple of steps back from the relationship, and also to reinforce my opinion about what coaching really is, and I was able to do that through some posts I've started doing through the crisis, which is a word of the day. And usually the first line talks about, coaching is about creating space for possibility, or coaching is about this, coaching is about that, really to help my community, which is partly some of the same people that are in her community too, to alert them to the fact that this is a science and there is training that is required to be able to do it well, that you could be just jumping into a whole heap of liability with no insurance to back it up if you pick the wrong coach because they think they've done that.
And therein is the connection between the wisdom that you have because of lived experience, but there's also the wisdom of the process of mentoring, and the notion is, well, I can do it for free because I think, versus, oh no, I'm going to charge for it. There's a dance going on, folks. There is this dance that is really requiring our attention at this point in time, so we can understand the intention of the mentoring we're going to put into play. And that's really great.